What is up, guys and gals? Today we're working on an Abu Garcia Commodore 77L, which is the level wind feature. Show you how to break it down, service it, and reassemble it with some tips and tricks along the way. Before we get started, we're going to look for a schematic on this just so we can have it, see what goes where, and any part numbers if need be. Before we open this up, I'm going to show you a trick that you can use or do for yourself to make sure your level wind is working properly. Your goal here is essentially to check the far left side and the far right side to make sure it's transferring well. And the only way you can do that is to get there, go slowly, and see what happens to this carrier. And you want to do this from every angle possible. Smooth transition right there. And there as well. And this is the typical in the rod position when you're fishing with it. But we're still gonna do something like this, like that, and like that as well. Smooth. The goal here is to see what happens at the bottom. That's smooth as well. Same thing for that. Then we'll do some stuff like this. And you're just verifying that the pawl itself or the setup is still good. All right, so first we're gonna get started by doing the left side of this. To get there, I'm gonna remove this right side. I'm gonna leave everything intact, but I'm gonna remove those 3 screws on the outside to take that plate off. All those screws are the same size, so we're just gonna pull up, and that's it. Out that comes. And now what we see in here are the clicker, the idler gear, and that click tongue. We're gonna remove all those things. We're gonna start with the clicker. I'm going to remove that E-clip by sticking a small screwdriver in one of those gaps and twisting. Try different angles. One of them will work. Off that comes. This is one of those scenarios where it's good to have a magnetic tip screwdriver so you don't lose that piece. Now I'm just gonna push down on that little pin or black button right there. Out that comes. And now we can pop out this click tongue like so. Next, we're gonna remove that ring right there just by undoing that screw that you see. Now we're gonna keep these separate because the screws may be different. We have one there and then we have this one here that's going over that bushing at the bottom. I'm removing that one first, but you can do the screw that's in the transfer gear or the idler gear. That's from the idler gear, and that is from the one covering the bushing. Now I'm gently gonna work that up. One thing you want to know here is that piece on the bottom will be facing down, going into that channel right around there. Now we can pull that bushing out. And under that bushing should be a washer, and we see it inside there. I'm gonna try to take it out, but if it doesn't come out, I'm just gonna leave it. There's a couple of tricks you can use. You can just turn it over and kind of bang it. It comes out. Sometimes it doesn't. Then you can also use some grease at the end of it so it sticks to it, and then you can pull it straight up. Now we're going to work on removing the level wind system. I'm going to start on this side. Same concept as removing the E-clip from the click button. You want to make sure you have it in this direction. Kind of put your finger over it just in case it shoots out somewhere. Out that comes. And now on this side, you can use your fingernails. Sometimes that gets it out. I'm just going to use this. There's a little channel right here that you stick in and just kind of wiggle up to remove this cap. Also on this cover, there's an O-ring. I'm not going to remove it, but just note that it's there. If it's not, you should replace it. Otherwise, this will fall out of there. Now that we have that off, I'm going to remove that other E-clip. Both of them will be the same size. Drop that out. We have this little bushing that's on it. Kind of keep that lined up so you can see it. Now we can take this, undo this cap right here, just by unscrewing it. And just kind of dropping that pawl out of there. Now we can take this shield, push that out like so. Have that piece. Then you also have that bushing on this side. You do want to note that the bushings on each side are different. This one on the handle side has a flat side to it, and that'll be fitting inside that little channel right there. But you also do want to note that the handle side of this worm is rounded, and this side on the left side of the base is squared off. All right, now that that's all taken apart, we're gonna work on cleaning the reel. For the body of it, I'm gonna use some paper towel to kind of wipe some stuff off there, like the loose kind of dirt. Then I'm gonna spray it down with some Corrosion X just to break up any grease or residual dirt that may be on there, and then wipe that down again as well. I will also use a toothbrush. Same thing, same concept for this as it is for other parts on here. For the worm, I'm gonna use a Corrosion X, brush those teeth out or those slots out really good. And if you notice here, we have some wear on this carrier. What I'll typically use is something like 4/0 steel wool. Just kind of wipe that off. But I'll tell you a little secret, don't tell anyone. You can also use a wire brush to kind of get it started. All you have to do is just watch the metal to make sure you're not putting any holes or chipping any pieces out of it. For this piece right here, what I will use is a Q-tip. Just stick it in there and kind of wipe it out, in conjunction with, again, the Corrosion X to break down the grease. For the spool, it is the same basic concept. That gear does not come out, it stays in one place. So all we're doing is cleaning this up, getting it prepped and ready for reassembly. All right, we'll get this all cleaned up. I'll come back to you guys, show you how to put that stuff together, and then work on the other parts of the reel. All right, welcome back. Common theme here will be the grease that I use, which is pen reel grease, and the oil that I use, which is Speed X. We'll start with the easy stuff first. We're just gonna grease this spool right here. Light amount on the shaft, a little more on the shoulder. And on this side, we're gonna add a little bit to the teeth right there, but not on the larger teeth because they are for the clicker. We don't really need that. Now, since those gears are plastic, we don't necessarily need to do that. But sometimes if you don't put any grease or any lube on them, they'll make this noise when you're using them. Sounds like the bearing's bad, but it's really that's making the noise. For this piece, I did want to let you guys know that to clean the inside of there, I used a wire cleaner. Just stuck it in there and rotated as I turned, or as I pushed back and forth. Now for this reel, we'll probably use more oil than grease, but there will still be some places that we will grease on here. I'm gonna add a very light amount of grease around that post where that idler gear will be. A little down in here, but I will add some oil in there as well. And some in here where that click button will ride. Now I'm going to go ahead and grease this click ring. I'll do all around it, even on the inside. And a very light amount of grease on here as well. That should be enough. 2 points. Probably one of the last things we have is to grease that right there, but you can also oil this. All right, now let's go ahead and drop this little washer in there, looking like that. Now we'll take our bushing and drop that in. And I'm gonna add a little bit of oil just to break up that grease to help that spool rotate more freely. Now we're gonna go ahead and secure that with the screw. A couple ways you can do this is, you can take it, hold it upside down, turn that upside down and screw it in. An easier way would just be to add some grease to the tip of that screw or screwdriver and hold it like that, and then just screw it in place. Don't over tighten that. Next thing we're gonna put in is this idler gear, where we have that protrusion facing down, just like so. We'll secure it with a screw. Once you screw it in, just make sure it turns, which we see that it does. And now we're gonna stick our click ring on there. Put those 2 holes on the outside over the 2 posts that are on there, just like that. And now we'll secure that with the screw. Sometimes when you're putting these screws in, you'll feel that it seems pretty tight. When that happens, just kind of back it out and retry the threading or screwing it in, because you want to make sure that you're not creating a new groove with the threads on the screw. You want to follow the same channel that it was in before, so you don't open that hole up. Now that I put that over there, that's covering up the idler gear, so I'm going to rotate that again just to make sure that it's turning, and we're still good. Now let's go ahead and stick that clicker in there. A little bit of grease right there, just around the tip. Going to drop that in, just like that. We could add a little bit of grease inside there, and some on the outside. I just don't put any on the tip. Now I'm going to put this over it, just like that. I have that click button all the way forward, and then I'm going to open this up with my finger and push down on that click tongue. Now I'm going to secure it with this E-ring. I'm going to use my tweezers for this. I'm going to take and just lay it down on top, looking just like that. Now in general, you can use a couple things to do it. You can use your screwdriver and just press it on there. I prefer that in some scenarios. In this case, I'm gonna show you how to use the pliers to do it. We're gonna take it, pinch it just on the back side of it and press forward. Of course, we'll test it out to make sure that it's on there. And we can see that it is. Now that that's in, I'm gonna put this on the open position so it doesn't protrude and interfere with putting the spool back in place. Now for the level wind system. This shield will be going in just like this. This is the right side of the reel, left side over here. You notice there's two little prongs sticking out on the end there. On this piece, there are two tabs that this will fit into. So if we took it and put it over it, we can see it's not set yet. But if we rotate this, we'll see it fall into place. So first we'll take some oil, drop it in there. That's where the guy's gonna ride. Take our shield, stick that through the hole, just part way. About right there is fine. Stick this guide in that channel at the top right there, and then continue on pushing this through. Kind of like that. Now I won't go all the way in yet. Just kind of want to get everything kind of set up. And now I'm going to take this piece, drop it in place like it should be, just looking just like that. Continue pushing it over. Rotate this until I feel it lock in place, which it just did. And everything is looking pretty good. Now at this point we can stick the worm in straight through like that. Hold on to this piece as you do that and feed it through the hole. You'll see it start sticking out when you get there. Since it's there, I'm going to balance that on the back side with my finger and then put this E-clip on it. Looking just like that. Now since we have this side set up, we can go ahead and fix the other side as well. First we'll take our bushing, drop that over the post, just like so. Make sure it goes into the recess. This bushing does not have any tabs that you need to worry about, so it just goes in. Take our gear, we're gonna add a little bit of grease. Like that. Drop it over it. You'll have to rotate that gear until it falls in place because remember that end of the worm is squared off. Take our E-clip, put it in like that. Gonna leave it upside down like this. This is one of those scenarios where you will need to use a screwdriver. You just have to be really careful and hover just above that gear so you don't damage the plastic of it. Now remember, this had a little washer at the bottom of it. It's still there. I did not remove it. I'm just gonna add some oil to the bottom, like so. Add some oil to the threads right there. A little bit to the tip. Now I'm gonna take this pawl, stick it straight up and down looking like that. Put it in. Press on it. If it doesn't go in right away, or if you don't feel it recess into the worm, gently hold onto the back of it and rotate that idler gear until you feel it fall into place on the worm. This one already has, so I'm gonna back that up again and put on the end cap. All right, last piece here will be this. As I said, don't forget there's a tab right there, which will go in that recess. I'm gonna drop it in, push down on it, make sure it sets in place, and now everything is secured. At this point, we can go ahead and stick our spool back in and set that to the side. All right, let's go ahead and break the right side down. First, you're gonna remove the handle. We'll undo this screw right here. You can pull that plate off, or you can just leave it there. Get your wrench and just undo it. You're backing it up counterclockwise. Lift that handle up. You'll have two washers under there. One is flat, one is curved. Then you can back that star drag off. Now at this point we can take that cap off. You have some washers in there as well, plus that spring. I'll leave the washers in there, but I will add some oil to it. Now we can turn this over and remove this plate. Now we're gonna double check the screws on this to make sure they're all the same length. So I'm holding my reel in a certain position, looking like this for myself while I'm unscrewing these. All those look to be the same size, but I believe this one was longer than it is. The one that's going through the dog is the longer screw, so we just have to remember that when we put the reel back together. Now I'm going to pull it straight up. That's what we have. Now I'm going to undo this screw to get the jack. Pull that off like that. Pull this up. Separate the pinion and that yoke, and we have 2 springs under there. Now we can turn this reel over, press down on this as we remove this screw here that's on the eccentric lever. Now we'll keep that separate, kind of rock that off, gently release that, it'll pop out of place, like so. You have that spring in there, we're going to take that and separate it. Now notice we have a bearing inside here. Just going to pop that out. And now we'll work on breaking this down. I'm just going to pull that straight up. I'll leave that intact for now, show you that in a second. We can pull off that ratchet plus that washer there. I'm going to remove that off the post, but you saw how that was sitting. Now we can undo these 2 screws here to remove this plate. Note on the top side right here, there's a larger screw or larger head screw than the bottom. Pull that up. And now we have an E-clip on the bottom here to remove that plate. In and twist to remove it. Like that. You can separate that. And all you have is just this shaft here. But now you can pull this out, which is the bushing that it's riding in, and this bearing out. Alright, so whenever you get a stuck bearing like this, you can take your screwdriver, if you have one that's kind of sloped like this, turn it over, push that through like that. It's supporting the inner race of it. I'm just going to bang it. And out it comes. So since this was stuck in there, let's go ahead and check this bearing and see how it feels. Feels fine. Alright, the last thing we have here is the drag stack and the gear. I'm going to take this off. You'll see there's a washer that's inverted. 2 tension washers and the drag stack, which all came out in one, which is rare. So that's good. And that's how it looks. All right, so same deal as what we did for the left side in terms of cleaning things up. Get that done and come back to you guys in a little bit. Welcome back. Now to test bearings, what I do is just kind of hold on my fingers and rotate that gently to feel if there's any kind of roughness or herky-jerky behavior on it. And I also bring it next to my ear to just kind of hear what it sounds like. Now if I'm hearing anything that's raspy, or if I feel that it's really hesitating or really sticky, you can kind of hear like the crunchiness that goes with it. Then it's probably a bad bearing, but I can show you ways of opening that up, refurbishing it, and reusing it. I'll leave a link to that video at the end of this video and in the description below. First thing we're going to do is oil these bearings. And we're just going to work that in. Just rotating it like that. Next we're going to put the eccentric in, and we'll take this little bent piece right there, stick that into the hole just like that. A way to keep that in place is to add a bit of grease to the tip right there and then just stick it in. Usually that'll keep it in place. Now this is the position that we want it in, looking like that when we set it up into the housing. Now I'm going to take this, stick it into that hole just like so, drop it in place. Now we can rotate that end of the spring down into that slot right there. Now I'm going to press down on this, turn it over. If you look, you'll see on that post there's a squared off section. There's a corresponding squared off in this lever as well. We're going to line those up, which is about right there. Notice it's not all the way down yet. I'm going to start rotating as I push it in. Now we get to here, I'm going to press down on this lever to hold it against the frame so this doesn't move out of position. And then I'm just going to screw it in. Once it's in place, you can let it go and obviously double check it to make sure it's working, which we can see that it is. If you want, you can go ahead and grease the spring. I don't always grease it, but it doesn't hurt to do it. Now we're going to go ahead and reinstall the shaft. I'm going to grease a few places on here first. One will be right there where the shaft is going to go. Some over that hole where those two screws that support the shaft goes. And some in here where that bearing right there will go. We can also add some around that post where the dog will sit. First thing I'll put in is this bearing. Next I'll put this bushing in. Over like so, and that's the setup right there. Now I can also add some grease around here, especially on that slot where the E-clip will be going. You don't necessarily need to grease this, but you certainly can, or at the very least put a light coat of grease on it. There's not a certain way that it has to go in, but if you look at this, you'll see there's some telltale marks of where it was sitting originally. We'll put it back in that same direction. There's some wear on the outside around this hole right here. Stick this through, looking like that. Taking our E-clip, laying it flat on top, and then just squeezing it in with the pliers or a screwdriver. Now we'll take it and rest inside that bushing, looking just like that. And don't forget, like I said, the larger head screw will be going on top. Right there. And the other one will be going down here. I'm going to snug those down right now. Now we can start setting up the main gear with the anti-reverse dog, just that entire stack. First we'll do the anti-reverse dog, and we want to make sure we're putting this in the right way. So we want to see what the setup is. You can always tell because the direction of the reel will be this way as you crank it, so it'll be spinning in that direction. And this, when it goes backwards, will stop it. So basically what we're looking at is this going in that orientation. Stick our dog in, just like that. I'm going to take our ratchet looking just like that. And now we're going to take the dog and just set it down just like that. Now I'm going to hold on to the dog and to the ratchet, and then take a screwdriver or my pick and just stick it over that post right there. Take this piece that goes under the main gear. Now we'll take the main gear and we'll add some grease to it. But this doesn't need to be perfect, just need to get some grease on there. Be kind of nice and even, but it'll work itself in as you use the reel. That should be good. And I will put some on the bottom as well. And we're just going to drop that over like so. Now to put in the drag stack, we're going to take these washers. We don't grease them, just going to drop them in place. Make sure our first one sits in the recess that's in the main gear. Take one of our keyed washers, it looks like this. Drop that over. Next drag washer. This aired washer that'll fit between the two slots that's on the main gear. Then our final drag washer and our final keyed washer. Now we can continue on by putting the springs on. These tension springs, they will look like that when you put them together. Drop that in place. This cover piece or top piece will have that raised portion right there facing up towards the handle, and the fully flat side will be facing down. And now that stack is set up. Now we're going to go ahead and grease this jack plate right here, this yoke, and the pinion gear. gonna put a decent amount of grease in the middle right there that interacts with the pinion gear. On the pinion gear, you want to make sure you add some grease in that channel that yoke will be sitting in. But in general, I like to grease every single thing or every single area or surface area of these metal pieces. Now we're going to take these springs, stick them over these posts right here. Now on this yoke, you'll notice that there's one side that has a sloped edge and one side that's flat. The sloped edge will be facing up like this in that position. I'm going to drop that over it, looking like that. Now I'm going to gently press down on it, take this jack, stick that over the post on the eccentric looking like that, and then I'm going to secure it. Now I'm going to take this, bring it over, and this with everything set up, and I'm going to turn that over and put it on top of this. There's a couple things you want to note. One is you want to be careful the pinion doesn't fall out, and there's some posts on here. There's 4 total, and 1 recess right here. That recess is the best indicator because that's going over that post that's supporting the dog. Now this can be done in either the engaged position like this or in the free spool position like this. I'm going to do it in the engaged position. And like you saw there, the pinion fell out. Gently take this, flip it over, and we don't need this to be perfect, but you can get there sometimes. If you just rotate and push down at the same time, you'll find the posts or recesses that just need to go in. But if you don't, it doesn't matter. All you're doing is getting everything over it so it's supported, and then you can pinch it down, flip it over like so, and then rotate everything until it falls in place, which this one already has. Now we're going to squeeze everything to keep it together and support it with the screws, those 4 silver screws. Don't snug them all the way down yet, and don't forget this long screw goes into that post that's over the dog. Once you get them all in, you can go ahead and snug them down. We can always double check it to make sure it's working. We see that's working there. Let's put it into free spool, and that works as well, which is always good. Now we can take our bearing, drop that in, and now we can put on our knob. I'm going to take some oil, stick that in there like that, drop the spring inside that recess, flip it over and secure it. Not going to go all the way down yet, I just kind of want to get it started. Then at the end, when I put everything together, I'll adjust it. Now we can take some grease and add it to the threads on the shaft. Take my star drag, spin it on there. Just make sure it's balanced before you go all the way down. You don't want to cross thread this. And when you get towards the bottom, you may start having everything slip together like so. If that happens and it's not far enough down yet because you're looking to get it to that base or support base right there that's cut into the shaft, you can take your handle, stick it over it, and then just turn it down to expose that base. Now we'll take this piece that's curved, we're going to have it going on facing down, this flat piece above it, and now we'll take this, set it over it, and secure it with the screw. Careful not to cross thread this either. When you get it snug down to the bottom, we're going to go ahead and put this over it. It's almost lined up, or it's going to turn a little bit more to get that over the hole so we can add that screw to it. Now that's done, we can take some oil, add it inside that knob right there, rotate it to just kind of work it in. We can also add some here and there. Now we're going to take this, just put it together. I'm going to stick it in, we're going to rotate this until everything kind of lines up. And you should be able to feel it fall in place like that if you're gently pushing in and rotating. Now we're going to go ahead and secure it with these 3 screws on the outside. Now let's do a quick test to make sure everything works. That's the free spool. That works. Put some drag down on it. Put it into engaged. That works. We can see the level wind works properly. Clicker. Also good. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you found this video useful, please hit that thumbs up button. Consider subscribing to the channel with the notification bell turned on. And don't forget to check out this video if you're interested in learning how to refurbish your bearings. See y'all next time.